Hello everyone, this is Gamer Dad from our gamer family, and welcome back for those of you who have watched part 0 of this particular series, which was the setup of a Caveman2Cosmos Civilization 4 game. Caveman2Cosmos is a very deep and very thorough, almost a complete reworking of Civilization 4. It's one of my favorites. I've played every single version of Civilization from Civ 1 all the way up to Civ 6, and many of the very, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, which I loved. I love Civ 4, and I think that this mod really does some really interesting things and breathes new life into it. And I encourage you, if you like what you see, to give it a shot, download it, and see what it looks out for you. So I'm going to hide my face here because, as you know from any Civilization game, the entire interface relays information, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to be seeing my mug while you're busy looking because you want to see what's going on in the playthrough. So give me a second here. I'm going to hide myself and put on my headphones here so I can hear the sound, and so that my recording device doesn't pick up that sound, and we will begin. So what we're looking here is not that dissimilar to a standard Civilization 4 start. We have our settler unit, which is actually a band of Homo sapiens, not truly a settler. And we have our starting first unit, which in this case is a stone thrower. This is your typical sorts of start. So let's begin. You'll notice here that one thing that's a little unusual about this versus vanilla, or rather BTS version of Civ 4, is that you don't see any of the resources. We have some caves over here, which would be considered a sort of a resource. Some bamboo up here. Hills. We've got some coral reefs here, but other than that, we don't see any, wheat or corn or any of the growth resources. We don't see any of the strategic resources to begin with. We don't see any of that because we haven't researched it yet. We essentially start out as basically a bunch of wanderers in 2000 BC. With 200,000 BC, sorry, not 2000 BC, 200,000 BC, with pretty much not much in the way of a civilization to go, and we're going to be building that civilization. We don't even have any leader traits yet, as you can see here by looking over there. We're at leadership level 0. Until we get to level 1, that's when we get our first trait. We don't have any traits. And we don't have any culture, so until we get level 40 culture, we're not going to get any leader traits. So let's found our first city. We've got a pretty decent start here from what I can tell. Again, I can't see what kind of resources we have around you, but I've found that the world generator for C2C does a pretty good job of making sure that you have at least some decent resources close by, if not within the first ring, certainly within the fat cross of your city. Plus I've got access to water here, although to be fair, I do have coral reefs there, and that will damage any ships that I attempt to send out from my starting city here. The only real drawback to this city is that I don't have a river, so my city will probably be a tiny bit more unhealthy than a similar city on the edge of a river, and also rivers provide some gold and with later technologies provide some production advantages over non-river cities. So this might not become a production powerhouse, but maybe I turn that into more of a cultural powerhouse because it is my capital city. So let's look at the city. We've got buildings, wonders. Our first wonder here is our palace, of course, in our capital city. And we have this special area here. We've got from our base commerce of 13, we're 100% going to research right now, and that's where I like to leave it, at least initially, to kind of get those initial boosts. No commerce coming in generating any type of gold. We're losing a little bit of gold, but at least it rounds gold down in this system. We've also got a couple of things telling us how much food we're generating, how much production we could be generating, as well as how much commerce we're generating. And trade routes to and from the city. Of course, we don't have any yet because we haven't researched that technology. I will leave it here on food because right now that's probably our most important. We want to start growing the city as soon as possible. Well, our current civic is a militia, which means we get free promotions for certain types of units that we build in the city. We also start with the culture North America because we're starting with the Iroquois. They are a North American culture. This is what we would begin with, and we're generating 1 culture per town. We're also still considered homeless. We're still wanderers. Maybe we've settled down into an area, but we haven't actually started to be able to build houses yet. We haven't researched the technology. And we have no resources. You can see here that while we're generating free food, 4 actually from worked tiles, but -5 from our civics, because we don't really have we're basically hunter-gatherers at this point. We're losing 6 per turn. The reason we're losing 6 per turn is because 4 is being eaten for our population, and 2 because of our unhealth. About the only thing positively going for this city so far is the fact that our people are happy. So let's begin. I typically like to build the alpha male first because it gives more production. And right now, since I can't buy things, since I'm not generating any gold, production is, if not king, at least an important aspect of what we want to do moving forward. And I also turn off the citizen automation. It will often override specific selections that I make up here because it thinks it knows better. And in some cases, maybe it does know better, but it doesn't know my plan. So I always disable that. We can queue up by holding down the shift key. So we'll do an alpha male, then the alpha female, and then I'm going to add a couple of stone throwers to the mix since we want to begin exploring very quickly. Also, upon finding the city, we have generated what they call a tribal guardian. It's basically a garrison unit, and we will set that up for fortification to guard the home city as we move forward. So let's begin exploring. I'm going to go up on this hill here because getting on top of things gives you a slightly larger viewpoint, unless of course you've got the woods in the way. You'll see here that because my city is unhealthy, you'll see this sort of yellowish green miasma over the city. It's because my city is currently unhealthy. Once we move to an unhealthy state, hopefully here, and it'll be a few turns, we'll be able to, we'll see that disappear, and this icon will also disappear. So let's also start with our first technology. It's going to generate the technology tree, and the technology tree is massive. There's well over 1,000 technologies. I don't remember the exact number. I'm sure somewhere it's probably here. It'll tell you how many technologies from technology. I don't know if that's 6,300 is the number of technologies or just the number of points you can get from technology. It's probably the number of points you get from technology. Somewhere it may tell you the total number of technologies, but I don't remember what that number is. In any event, you'll see a lot of these look like your standard engineering is pretty vanilla, so is theology, although there are some differences between the name may be the same, but the technology is not the same. we'll begin back here at the beginning here. So we have a choice between nomadic lifestyle and languages to begin with. I always like to, since I like religion and I think that's an important part of the game and helping build your civilization, I typically try to beeline towards an early religion because I like to capture Druidic traditions, or Druidism, if you will. And there's some benefits to it, particularly growing a city. So I like to try to capture that one if I can early on. I don't always. It depends on what the AI does for its specialty. I see them often go towards the next religion on the tree, which is shamanism. Why they choose that one over Druidism, I'm not 100% certain, but that seems to be the one the AI seems to head towards first. So we'll exit. So that's our first turn. We'll wait here. We'll see here that it says Mohawk has become unhealthy. It was really unhealthy already, but it's actually becoming more unhealthy, as we'll see here in a second. And in fact, well, let's look to see what the city is done now. So we'll go back to buildings. We now have a one bonus production as well as -1 on the crime. And so you'll be asking, what is crime? Well, one of the things that I find most fascinating about this particular mod is that it adds inherent properties to the cities, towns, villages that you found. That is disease, and as you know, those of us who are a study of history know that as mankind or humankind started to congregate together, diseases followed them and became real problems. Not that it wasn't a problem before, but if you're a wandering tribe and you very rarely see another tribe of your fellow humans, the chances of you getting a new disease that hasn't already infected your entire tribe is pretty small. But as suddenly you can congregate together, diseases become more and more of a problem, as does crime. Education is a trait that you generate once you research certain types of buildings and build those buildings. And to a certain extent, education can counteract both of these. As people become more educated, they're less likely to commit crimes. And as they become more educated, they become better educated about diseases and the cause of diseases, and it can counteract that. Granted, it takes a long time and a fairly high education before we see that to occur. We also have water pollution and air pollution associated with these traits as well. And as we go there, other traits will be added. There's a tourist trait that will show up a little bit later once we've researched the right technology. But right now we're generating a fair amount of all of these resources. It takes a fair amount of these to build up before they become a problem, but it is certainly something that you need to keep an eye on, and particularly the pollution can get out of hand. In some regards, the reason I like this is because it forces you to fight your own worst instincts. A lot of the production buildings generate pollution, whether that's water or air pollution. So the real question becomes, do you build that in order to gain a little bit more production, but make your citizens a little more unhappy? And in some cases, as we'll see here under the special, the disease can actually lower your production. So if your disease goes up too high, this production minus becomes more and more. And you can actually produce a production building that will actually cause your production to go down because the corresponding negative effect of that building overrides the positive effect of that building, which is what we can see here. We started with 5 production, but because the common cold has showed up in our newly founded city, we're actually losing production, and the game rounds up. So we're losing a production of hammer because of the common cold. So despite the fact that I built this alpha male, which adds +1 production, I've actually lost 1 production because of the disease from finding my city. So these are important stacks to keep an eye on. We will begin. Let's do a little more scouting. This is our current score here. So we've got 3 from population. We haven't really done too much yet, so we don't have a lot of points yet, but neither does the AI, although we haven't met anybody yet. Take a look at this now. So we've now built the alpha female, which adds 1 point of production, but we're still not making enough food to offset our unhealthiness. But we'll see here that our disease is increasing a little bit slower, so we've offset some of the negative effects of the disease. So on turn 3 here, we will research our first technology. So what this does for us is it adds a new unit that we can build, the Wanderer. So think of this as a very, very early scout, a lone person who you can click on the control here. The shift here, rather. Yeah, the shift will tell you the size matter stats. So the size is medium, speed is fast, tells you some of how it wields, fights, but it's a single person, a solo person. But their combat quality is elite, so they fight okay. But okay, we also get some promotions for our units. So again, you don't get all your promotions at the beginning of the game. You actually have to research technologies that will give you a lot of the promotions that your units will get. And that's always frustrating if you've been playing for a while. You're like, oh, I want to get to this promotion because it gives my units an extra bonus movement. Why can't I do that now? Oh wait, I haven't researched that technology yet. So we finished our production queue, produced the 2 stone throwers, so I'm going to add a couple of wanderers to the queue. And let's see here, we got 2 stone throwers. Let me move that over towards this stone thrower. If I can join these 3 units up, I'll show you the size matters ability to combine multiple units into a single unit. Because a 1 strength unit is not very strong, and early on can't do much in the way of hunting. At least not any animals that are going to produce enough food and production to be of any real value to you. So let's get these 3 units up on the hill, and we have our first wanderer. Now, they may have a movement of 2, however, they at least at this stage of the game, our units, we don't have roads or anything like that, so this rough terrain, the muddy and the forest and the hills use up any bonus. But if I can get them out into open territory, it looks like we've got a lush field out here, that if I can get them over there, I can actually take advantage of that bonus movement. Gathering. So the first to discover receives a gatherer. So if I was the first to discover it, and I don't know if I am yet until we see. Hopefully I was, but again, the AI tends to beeline to this pretty quickly. So unless I got really lucky, I often don't get this. It also enables some new buildings. It's one of our early wonders here. Some new buildings and our first cultures. Now, none of these may be ones that I can actually build. In fact, I think that they are not. So this is culture African is the base one. We're North America, that's an Asian one. That's an Oceania, that's an Oceania one. So none of these are cultures that my people, the Iroquois, will ever be able to attain. Some improvements that we can build. fruit gathering camps with our gatherers, which is our first builder type unit. It also allows us to see these types of improvements. And you can see that the number of improvements is rather quite dramatic. And it also gives us access to a large number of new technologies. So this is gathering is one of those keystone technologies that you want to try to hit earlier on. And oh, nice. So I end up having rice here next to my village. This is great. This is a great building of your city resource because it provides a lot of food. And I also got a luxury resource, silk. But it's going to be a while before I will have the technology to take advantage of that. Let's take a look at the city here and see if maybe we can reassign our worker here to gain a little bit more. So here we have an interesting dilemma. So if I go here, I will actually gain one more production, as well as a little more. Since my base commerce will go up by 2, I'll actually gain a little more research, which is a bonus. So more production and more commerce. However, if I go here, I could gain some more food, which would allow me to go up a size in the city, but it would be number of turns. Plus, with as unhealthy as I am, I'm not gaining anything specific, and in fact I'm actually not producing wanderers nearly as rapidly that way. So let me go over here. I will research a smidge quicker, which is not a bad thing, and produce a little bit more resources. And as you can see over here, disease is going up, crime is going up, water pollution fortunately has stabilized, but the air pollution has actually dropped rather dramatically. And that's because we're taking advantage of the fact that we live near the ocean. And you can see here on the tiles, if you hover over the tile, you can see that they have a pollution value. So a -29 and -57 there. The air pollution around us all contribute to the air pollution of a specific tile, and that impacts, therefore, the air pollution inside the city. And because we've got a lot of forests around us, both the bamboo forest and the forest near us, that's helping offset that, which is great. And we've got this wanderer here, so I'm going to pull the wanderer out here, and then I've got a second wanderer. Oh, great! I did research gathering first, as I got 2 gatherers. If you come in second, you only get 1 gatherer, or second, third, fourth, on down the list. You always get 1 gatherer when you research gathering, but you get a bonus gatherer if you research gathering first. So this is great. So I believe now I can now create a gathering pit over here. Pit's not the right word, but I can do some gathering over here. The other gatherer, I can't do anything here with this yet, and I don't have the technology yet to build paths to help move my troops around and to get resources to my city. So I'm just going to sleep that for the time being because I don't need the gatherer yet. And let's move the wanderer out of the city. Excellent. So now that I've got these 3 stone gatherers, so the size matters, the ability to, and you'll see this icon here, merge with 2 like units of the same plot to create a single more powerful unit. So it isn't you get a unit that has 3 times the strength. You get a unit that has 50% more strength from 3 units. But it also doesn't require quite as much resources to maintain that. I believe it's like 75% of the cost of 3 of them together instead at that. So you're reducing the number of units, which can help with if you're running low on funds and running right up against the edge of your funds. Helps keep the number of units around for Stacks of Doom to a minimum, but also gives you units that have a little more, that can punch above their weight a little bit more. So I'm going to select the 3 of them. Now we have a single stone thrower that has 1.5 strength. And again, that's not great at this level. It's still not going to As we'll see once we start to see some animals, it will help with some animals, but not be great with other animals. But we can tell here we've got this size up. We've now merged up to into a squad. We started as a party, which was 2 to 6 entities, if you will, and we're now a squad, which is 7 to 20 entities. And so let's move him down the peninsula. I seem to be on a peninsula here, which is not great, but it's also not bad. It means this is easily defensible, and if I can build a city out here in the blackness, it might be a decent city, assuming there. Oh, I found some corn out here as well. And like I said, this is one of the things. Oh, and spices. Nice. I should be able to 2 luxury resources is actually, that's a really good start. I'm not going to complain about this start. I got food. We'll see about strategic resources here once we get a little further down the tech tree. The first strategic resource I believe that we're gonna be viewing here or seeing is going to be horses. Now we'll see which one of those, whether horses show up anywhere near me. I suspect, given the fact that this is mostly forest, that's probably not going to happen. But we're in turn 5. And we're still 192,000 years ago. So we trained our last wanderer, and we'll see now we've got a lot more things to build now. So again, production, at least right now at this stage, production is king. There's really not much we can do beyond that until we start to offset some of this and or generate enough food that we can offset this minus to actually begin making positive inroads towards gaining our second citizen unit. So let's go to the stick gatherer, because that gives me +1 to my production. And we have our first what they call a group wonder of legendary landscapes. So they have different types of wonders in this game, and this is one of the earlier wonders that are basically built on the landscape. The idea of a wonder built around the land itself, and that's one of the key driving forces with Caveman2Cosmos, is that the cultures and the civilizations and the people are shaped by the land as much as they shape the land. We've also got a storage pit here that we can build, although I think I'll hold off on that for the time being, since we're not generating any positive food. Being able to hold on to 5% after growth isn't that valuable at this point. But let's add maybe seed camp, because that adds a point of production, a point of food that we can start beginning to offset this negative that we're seeing here. Again, we're still generating disease, we're still generating crime, not generating any education here. Water pollution is nice and low, and the air pollution is still in the negative, and we're not any special buildings yet. And we got our third wanderer. So wanderers are such poor units from a combat standpoint that once the barbarians start to spawn, they pretty much all die pretty easily. Oh, yep, and we can do a gather grains. Now, the one thing that's bad about the gatherer is that once you go to build something similar to Civ 6, maybe they got the idea from here, I don't know, that you use the unit. Now, eventually, once you get... Hello, everyone. This is Gamer Dad from our gamer family, and welcome back. For those of you who have watched part 0 of this particular series, which was the setup of a Caveman2Cosmos Civilization 4 game. Caveman2Cosmos is a very deep and very thorough, almost a complete reworking of Civilization 4. It's one of my favorites. I've played every single version of Civilization from Civ 1 all the way up to Civ 6, and many of the very, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, which I loved. I love Civ 4, and I think that this mod really does some really interesting things and breathes new life into it. And I encourage you, if you like what you see, to give it a shot, download it, and see what it looks out for you. So I'm going to hide my face here because, as you know from any Civilization game, the entire interface relays information, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to be seeing my mug while you're busy looking because you want to see what's going on in the playthrough. So give me a second here. I'm going to hide myself and put on my headphones here so I can hear the sound, and so that my recording device doesn't pick up that sound, and we will begin. So what we're looking here is not that dissimilar to a standard Civilization 4 start. We have our settler unit, which is actually a band of Homo sapiens, not truly a settler. And we have our starting first unit, which in this case is a stone thrower. Here's our So I love some of the quotes that they were able to pull into this into these newer technologies. You know, we all love Leonard Nimoy, and he did some great voiceovers, but I really like some of the Jack Handy deep thoughts quotes that they were able to pull out. Some of these are quite amusing, and they have a number of them in technologies as we move forward. So that's one of the fun things about that. They have quotes that for each of these new technologies that they're producing. Let's get up on a hill here, and oh, okay, now where the animals are starting to spawn. So get that wanderer out, get that wanderer up there, send that wanderer that way. So we'll see here we have a leash of red fox. So they're not terribly strong, which is good. That means I can probably hunt them effectively, and they do provide three food and 1 production when you harvest them. And you can see that they're just a small group. Their size small, they're fast. Their group is a party, and they're superior. So they're small. They're animals, canines. So if I could get my stone throwers here near them, we can do. And we also have a resource here. Now this looks an awful lot like oil. It is not. This is tar pit. And again, tar was one of early man's sealants, if you will. Tar pits were also a source of hunting. Apparently, you know, they're the images where mankind would, lure large animals into tar pits in order to trap them so that they could effectively dispatch them and try to get the meat out before the animal sank into the swamps. So let's hunt this leash of red fox. So if we do the Alt key here, we can see our odds. So it's 100% chances. So it's not really 100%. It's just that I get a first strike there apparently, and I've got a bonus versus animals, and we are nearly 3 times the strength of that fox. So our stone thrower killed the red fox. So we actually only got 1 food despite what it said. Oh, that 3-1 was not from the red fox. That was actually from the forest. The lush forest, 3 food and 1 production. So apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. We also got a little bit of experience on there. So here's where we take advantage of that double move from the wanderer. I thought that food looked a little high for a fox. So let's do that, and then do that. And I'll send this guy down this coast. I'll send this guy along here. Looks like maybe the coast, it's hard to tell. I haven't moved far enough in. And then maybe this guy will go straight, and then I will leave him back here to kind of guard the entrance here. Yes, so the coast sort of goes up this way. We have a crater, so we've got a meteor crater here that if we can get within the city radius, we can do some, I believe there's like a shrine to a skyrock that you can build. So we've researched cooking. So we have some resources here that will eventually show up, some buildings that we'll eventually be able to take advantage of, and we have pests. So again, as we research, we as a civilization get better at doing things, but along with that civilization comes along certain problems associated with civilization. So once our city reaches the size of 4, we will start to lose food due to ant pests, and our people will be more unhappy because of these pests. So we've finished our seed camp, and we've the stick gatherer, so we've got decent production still. And one of the nice things is if you mouse over, it'll tell you what you could build, what's available to build that would increase that stat. So it's telling me to do the LL Montverde will add 2 more production to my, and if I scroll down, the problem is that it's going to take me 9 turns to build that. But it is going to give me some coin, although a reduced amount, as you see there. You've got, the top is what the stats of the building are, but the actual will tell you what it's going to be based upon ongoing effects based on your civics and unhappiness and all sorts of impacts on there. So it's a world wonder, and you can only build 1 of these. So this is a pretty good one. And it also gives me stone tools, which I believe will allow me to build some better units once I get a little further into the research tech. So that's kind of a good thing. But I think I'm going to hold off for the time being and build another brace of stone throwers here, and maybe tack on the storage pit so that I have that ready. So, alright, so when I researched fire, I also got a myth. Now, myths are great because they add technology, but like a lot of things, you have to build them to do it. You also get myths from animals that you hunt and are able to subjugate, and also based upon where you are. So, you know, if you get, well, like the meteor site, the meteorite crash, if you get there, that gives you the myth of the skyrock, which can give you a little bit more technology. So I'm going to hit that up because I think that research is always important, and the more research points that you can get early on gives you that much of a leg up. So I'm going to research the myth. I'm going to build the myth of fire, which will give me another unit of science, then some stone throwers, and then the storage pit. So leave it at that. Get this guy moving. I'm going to move these guys back. And it looks like, oh, we got an eagle over here. An eagle. Oh, and we got a goodie hut. It looks like we've got a freshwater lake. So this is actually a pretty defensible little island here right now. If I were to build a city, say right there, it would be quite difficult for anybody to move in on my capital. So this might be a good place to do it. So maybe that's a good time to show you this, and then I'll show you this one little feature that's nice. So if we do Alt-X, we have the ability to map out what we want to, where we want to build cities. So I always use this ugly green color because it makes it obvious where it is. Then the other thing I always do is later on in the technology, we can actually extend out into the third tier out from the city to make a mega city. So I always like to build my cities at least far enough apart that I can get that third tier in there without too much trouble. So I like to build on rivers when I can, and I would like to have another. So again, you can move these around. These do not. So let's build there. We can do that, that, and that, and that. That will tell me the outline of what my large 3-ring city will look like. Now, if I overlap, I overlap, but I always try to do it so that I can get, ideally build it there, because then I can store boats in this this area and keep them out, but it's not that important. So you might want to do there. Again, this is tentative. So we escape to get out. Oops. Alt-X to break out of that. And then if we do Control-X, we can view them at any time. So I might... It's about as close as I can get, and that gives me 3 cities within a very short span of my thing. We'll have to see what's down here and see if it's worth it. We also have almonds, which is shown up here. We've got a swamp grassland here. And again, as we research more and more technologies, we're going to gain more and more resources that may show up on the map that we can take advantage of. So let me hide that again and hit now. Let's go to turn 15 and then we'll stop it for this particular session. Now we got an eagle down there. Move this over here. Oh, we've got a stack of an unkindness of ravens, and a badger and a pheasant, all stacked on top of each other. So these villagers are provided by unit with experience. Great. So that means I'll probably be able to give a couple of promotions to this wanderer, who will promptly die as soon as he runs into his first bear. Let's see. So the unkindness is the most powerful unit here. Hold the Alt key, so I get a reasonably good chance of surviving against the raven. But you'll also see here, you'll notice that it says 10% to subdue animal. So we've got a 10% chance, one chance in 10 of subduing these ravens. And subduing is a cool feature. So if we can subdue one of these animals, we can bring it back to our village, and then we can use it to create a myth of the raven. But we only killed it, and it only gave us 1 unit of food. So it wasn't terribly useful, but we got some experience for that unit. And I'm going to keep him right around here, so as animals spawn, we can take him out. And let's get him moving. Actually, I should have moved him south, since he's already headed that direction. And we've got a badger over there. A badger? We don't need no stinking badgers. Ah, we've got our first research that has resulted in a new civic that we could do. So let's see the big picture. Let me show you what the civic tree looks like. So there is a lot here, and there are a lot of different civics. Each of these is a different type of civic with subsections that do it. So our first one was is verbal. So let me scroll down here to our verbal area, which is basically our ability to communicate. Language. So this is our language skills. So right now we're nonverbal, which gives +1 on health in all cities. If we go to the native language, oh, it's great. It's going to add 5% to my research and 5% to my culture in all my cities. So let's get a native language. So you'll see here, as we get deeper into it, the upkeep per turn will increase as we get deeper into these technologies. And we'll actually have some revolution turns. But this early on in the game, we don't have enough there. So it adds +1 to all cities. Great. Happier people are happier people. We get some new upgrades. Native language. We've got some world wonders, wonders of nature that we can build if we have the right right things within our city vicinity. So this is great. Oh, this is the 2 more turns. So let's see. Now we can promote them to unit, makes them a little better. Promote it. So this one typically is the gateway to a lot of different abilities. But since this isn't really a combat unit, and I just need him to be more defensive than offensive, I'm going to give him Woodsman 1. There are a lot of woods around here. This gives him a great defense against woods, and it also gives him a slightly better chance of subduing animals, whereas this gives him a slightly less chance of subduing animals. And since I get another one, let's throw in... Yeah, what the heck? Throw in the gorilla one as well. And let's see, yeah, we get a decent chance at this. So let's kill the badger here. So 1 production and 1 food. Now this guy is hurt. There's another solitary badger over there, so I'm going to let him heal up a turn. And move him back. And then I will move him this way. We have constricted to the myth of fire. Now we notice, which is great. Look at my city. So we get +1 from a building, which is the myth of fire, and +5% from civics. Nothing special here. Myth effect fire, unfortunately, is -1 production per turn, but we're still doing pretty decent in production. And we move over here and see what happens. So here's where it gets a little interesting as well, because food can be used to produce units. We've got 14 production there versus 13 production, but that doesn't help towards the storage pit. So I'm going to leave the 13 where it is for the time being, because that growth isn't going to increase the size of my city. Move him back here so he can support the city. A flock of peasants. A flock of pheasants. And he's healed up, so I'll go over here. Oh, we got another goody hut, but I didn't make it, so we hit. So what we'll do is we'll end this turn. I will save this game, and then next time we will start off part 2 from where we left off here. I know this going a little slow right now, but that's because I'm trying to explain all sort of the details of what we're looking at. This will speed up a little bit more once we get a little deeper into it. So we'll hit continue. And so I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is one of my favorite games. I really enjoy this, despite the amount of detail and depth they've gone in here. I think it goes pretty smoothly, and it is, and at least this early, they've done the modders have done a huge amount to make this a truly great mod and a very interesting game. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button below, and part 2 will be coming out here shortly. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.